Welcome back to the section again, post-race, as I did yesterday. Today I'm going to be doing the evaluation of what I thought was more or less how they did each team and each driver. And at the end, I will also add FIA, the stewards or whatever, to see if they did right or not. Seeing how last season I also said that should the FIA be investigated for their fuck-ups. I don't know if I can say that on YouTube, but anyway. Let's start with the evaluations. So first of all, the winners, Red Bull, right? I give them a 10 because they did everything perfect. They didn't have anybody challenging them. Their car is the best. Their strategy was the best. They did soft, and hard. I said this many times and I keep saying it. They were the only team that did soft, hard. All the other ones had problems with tire management. Red Bull had none, and I think everything they did was amazing. And then we have Max Verstappen, also another driver that did everything right. In the free practice, he didn't care that Fernando Alonso was the fastest. They didn't care. He was doing his own thing, and then he qualified first, and he finished first the race, destroying even his own teammate, which apparently so far is the only challenge he has. His teammate Perez was overtaken in the start by Leclerc, and then he took many laps and a different strategy to try to overtake him. So for me, Max Verstappen, a 10. He did everything perfect. And Sergio Perez, I'm going to give a 7, first of all, because he's not the fastest driver. He is driving the fastest car. He had somebody overtaking him, like it was Leclerc, and he was not able to overtake him until like the race was already in some further stages, right? And they had a different strategy. Leclerc was with a hard tire, Perez was with a soft tire, and the difference in pace and everything made him able to overtake Charles Leclerc. So for me, Perez, yes, he did a decent race, but still, he didn't do anything outstanding. So 7, 6, something like that, I think is the score for the Red Bulls. Let's go with Ferrari. I am giving them a 4. I don't know if you can see it with that amazing light I put there. Anyway, I'm giving them a 4. Number one, the car is not closer to the Red Bull, and I don't think they are going to be closer the whole season, mainly because usually Red Bull develops the car much better than Ferrari does. Second, the tire management of the car is horrible. They cannot push in this racetrack, at least, because it's really hard on the tires. Let's see in other racetracks. But I can see that some races, they are going to suffer a lot. If they cannot push, they cannot attack. If they cannot attack, they cannot win the championship. That is number one. Number two, reliability. They finished the season with many DNFs because of reliability issues, not because of crashes, even though Leclerc had one crash. But anyway, Leclerc had a power unit problem, which made him lose a podium, or a possible podium. It has to be seen if Alonso was able to catch him or not. But once again, I think it's a big disappointment of a race that they had. Leclerc, I'm going to give him a 7 because he challenged Sergio Perez, at least until some point in the race, like I mentioned before. He qualified third. He was in front of the teammate, Carlos Sainz. But in the race, there was a time of the race where he was maybe like 13 seconds behind of Verstappen, but Carlos Sainz was more than 13 seconds behind Charles Leclerc, which once again we see that there is this tendency that Leclerc is beating constantly Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz, let's not forget that after the winter testing in the same racetrack, he said he was finally adapted to the car. He was more comfortable with the car, while Charles Leclerc actually said quite the opposite. So if this is the version of Charles Leclerc not so comfortable with the car and Carlos Sainz comfortable with the car, I mean, Carlos Sainz cannot even try to imagine aiming for the championship. So for me, Carlos Sainz has a 4. Tire management issues, more than Charles Leclerc. Pace issues, much more than Charles Leclerc. And he had a horrible race. One of the things that why I give him a 4, actually I should give him even less, but anyway, I was being quite generous with him. He has a 4 because he was able to keep Hamilton behind. And the one thing that he did really bad for me is that when he was defending himself from Alonso, he lost so much time trying to defend himself from a car I think it was like 13 laps till the end. At that point, it was lap 43-ish. He was defending so hard against an Aston Martin that was much quicker than him and was gonna pass him for sure in one of the straight lines with the DRS or whatever. He lost like 1.5 seconds or 2 seconds, and that's why, for example, Hamilton was able to catch him from behind, trying to defend from a car that was gonna overtake him anyway. If you are smart, yes, you're fighting for the podium, but you are not gonna be able to keep a car behind you for 12 laps, like it was the situation with Alonso, with really good tires, and you were not able to push. So not smart, not good race pace, not good qualifying, horrible race for Carlos Sainz. That's why I give him a 4, like Ferrari. Mercedes, I'm giving them a 5 because they didn't do anything spectacular, but also they didn't do any big screw-ups. Like last season, they screwed many races for Hamilton with the strategies. For example, the car is kind of there. They cannot challenge for pole positions, at least not yet. Looks like they don't have this porpoising anymore. I didn't see any cars with the porpoising. Maybe the Ferrari was bouncing a little bit, at least the one from Carlos Sainz. But yeah, they have a 5. I mean, they didn't do anything spectacular. I'm going to give a 7 to Hamilton because he was challenging Carlos Sainz and Fernando Alonso until the kind of end, even though Fernando Alonso was much quicker in the end. He tried to overtake Carlos Sainz, but they don't have the speed. For some reason, the Mercedes does not go quick. They tried several rear wing configurations, but they are not quick in this racetrack, at least. These racetracks where they require the rear, looks like McLaren, Ferrari, these kind of cars are not good enough. So I'm going to give 7 to Hamilton because he did quite a decent race. He was quick in the start. He overtook Fernando Alonso, and George Russell as well did. And he was there until kind of the end, let's say, right? Even though he was not able to overtake the Ferrari, who, by the way, again, was not able to push. And George Russell, I'm going to give him a 4. I'm gonna give him a 4 because of one simple reason. Lance Stroll had both hands injured. He had a lot of trouble steering, as we saw in the free practice. I think the engineer was telling him to do something in the first corner and he said he couldn't. And the onboard shows that he had to take the hand off the steering wheel in the straight lines so it didn't hurt, and so on. So George Russell, perfectly fit with the Mercedes, was not able to even overtake Lance Stroll, who was injured. So I don't want to know what's going to happen when Lance Stroll gets better. Maybe he's going to be in front of Hamilton as well. But I think that race has to be considered disappointing for George Russell. He should have been there with Hamilton, but he was not. So yeah, I think this is the notes for Mercedes, the evaluation. Aston Martin, I'm going to give them an 8. They had a very good strategy. They were calm during the race. I think they did everything good. They hired the correct people. They had a good team boss, Mike Crack, if I'm not mistaken. They hired Fernando Alonso when Sebastian Vettel left. I would like to see Sebastian Vettel in the same car to see what was going to be like. But anyway, I mean, they have a super class like Fernando Alonso, and they were cool. They were cool. Looks like the car is good. They had several impacts, like when Lance Stroll hit Alonso hit Carlos Sainz. The car didn't even flick, right? And not even got damaged. So the car is good. The car is fast. The car is good managing the tires. They have finally a good driver to try to fight for stuff. And I think they did everything right. They hired key people the same way, even though Red Bull is complaining now and accusing Aston Martin. Red Bull did exactly the same thing when they came into F1, right? They took the checks. They wrote many zeros to key people from many teams, like McLaren. They stole Adrian Newey and other many teams. And that's how they got to the top. And now Aston Martin is trying to do the same thing, and Red Bull is accusing them. Well, that's the game. So I think Aston Martin did a very good thing. Fernando Alonso had a very good race, of course. I'm going to give him an 8. Could be a 9, perhaps. He lost the position to Hamilton and then Russell. The Russell position is because Lance Stroll hit him from behind. But he kept his cool. He was calm all the race. He knew where he could get. I don't know if he was going to be able to overtake Charles Leclerc or not. Leclerc said he was managing the distance. Who knows? I think he had a very intelligent race and he had a very good race pace. If he had a very good race start, as he usually does, that's why I'm not giving him a 9 or a 10, for example. Perhaps he could have been there, who knows, challenging Perez maybe, or battling with Leclerc. We don't know. We will see in the other races to see. And Lance Stroll, I'm gonna give him a 6. Number one, I think he should be in the racetrack, trying to race every race he can, but getting into the car with injured hands is not a very smart idea. First for you, first for the other drivers, you can be a little bit of a danger or of a hazard. And aside from that, yes, he had a decent race. He beat George Russell, which apparently was the only rival he had in the race. There was nobody else because the rest of the cars are really far behind. And I think, he had a, let's say, quiet, like they call it, ninja race, right? Not big, not smart. So I'm gonna give him a 6. Perhaps if he didn't have the injured hands, he could have been more in front, more points. So I'm gonna give him a 6. And let's continue with the Alpine. I'm gonna give them a 4. I don't know why I don't give them less. The car is not good. The car should be expected much more than this. They were hiding in the winter test. I don't know if they were hiding or they just didn't have the pace. Apparently, every single car gained some pace except for the Alpine. As a constructor, as a Renault, because they are a Renault, they should be closer. They finished P4, P5 last season, but they were there battling with the McLaren, for example, to be the best of the rest. And now they are not the best of the rest. They are not closer to the I call it the big four, right? Red Bull, Ferrari, Aston Martin, and Mercedes. They should be there as a constructor battling with these 4 teams, or at least much closer than what they are now. And they didn't. They lost time. The race that they had was really bad. The qualifying on Gasly was bad. The race of Ocon was bad. So I think it was a disappointing race for Alpine. Ocon, I'm giving him a 2. Why? Number one, not positioning yourself in the good place or in the box of where you're supposed to start in the racetrack is a rookie mistake, and he's not a rookie. Number 2, he did the speed limit break in the pit lane. He had some touches with somebody damaging the front wing and everything. I think overall he had a really bad race. Yes, he got into Q3, but still, starting in the top 10 and finishing almost last, well, he DNF'd, but anyway, that was a really, really, really bad race for Esteban Ocon. And Pierre Gasly had actually the opposite. I'm gonna give him a 7 because he started almost last out in Q3, and he managed to get into P9, which without Leclerc's DNF was gonna be P10. But anyway, he got into the points. Like, he escalated through the field to get to the point. I think he had a solid race, and I would like to see how Ocon is going to manage this pressure, for example, because even the free practice and everything, Gasly was quicker than Ocon. So let's see how this develops. McLaren, I think this is one of the biggest disappointments of this race. I'm going to give them a 2 because the car, as it was last season, is kind of useless in this racetrack. They had many braking issues. They had many issues with the rear of the car. And for the team that was supposed to be challenging for P4, again, I'm going to say this as Alpine, to be as bad as they were last race, Piastri was P12 without that steering wheel issue. Perhaps he could have challenged the points. We don't know. That's the point. We don't know because there was an issue. And Norris also had a lot of issues with the car and everything. So the car is not good, at least now. They should be challenging the Mercedes, for example. They should have been much closer, but they are not. Aston Martin made a huge progress from last season, and McLaren didn't, as didn't Alpine. So for me, one of the biggest disappointments so far. I'm going to give them a 2 for the race management, for the car management, for everything. Lando Norris, I'm going to give him a 4 because I don't know. I mean, we could not see what was going to happen with Lando Norris. They made so many pit stops, there were so many issues. there was nothing he could do. So I'm gonna give him a 4. And Piastri, I'm gonna give him a 5 because even though he started one of the last as well, like Gasly did, for example, and he was out in Q3, he kind of was escalating. I think if I don't remember wrong, he was kind of near the P12, somewhere there, battling. Perhaps he could have scored some points. I don't know, but there was the issue with the car. He was DNF'd as well. So let's see how this develops. I'm gonna give him a 5 just because he did a good race start. Maybe it's not so easy being out of driving for one whole season. Let's see how this develops. I'm gonna give him a 5. The Alfa Romeo, I'm gonna give him a 6, mainly because they are the first of the rest, right? Their car looks like it's better than last season. They gained some time. Looks like both drivers are more comfortable with the car. Valtteri Bottas did what I call the ninja race without making noises or big overtakes or anything, doing some undercuts here and there. He was there. He was the best of the rest. He cannot do more. Unfortunately, the car is what there is. Alfa Romeo is leaving the F1 at the end of this season. Let's see what happens with this team if Audi is gonna take over and they're gonna develop the car for the next seasons. What's gonna happen with the budgets and everything. Andreas Seidel should manage this well. I have zero doubts that Andreas Seidel is there because of Audi. So let's see what happens with this car. Valtteri Bottas, like I said, I'm gonna give him a 7 because of the race he did. He was starting out of the top 10 and he finished the first of the rest. So smart race, silent race, no problems, fast driving, good. And Guan Yu Zhou, or Zhou Guan Yu, however you want to call it, I'm going to give him a 4. He was starting right next to Bottas and he finished P16 if I'm not mistaken. Really far from everyone. He was overtaken by the Alpha Tauris, he was overtaken by Magnussen, he was overtaken by Piastri, he was overtaken by everybody. I was expecting much more from Zhou Guan Yu. Not overtaking, he was not even able to follow Bottas, he was quite far from Bottas. I don't know, he had a complicated race, but still, with this car, if Bottas was able to finish in P8, Zhou Guan Yu should be there as well if he is aiming to stay in F1 longer than this season. So let's see what happens with Zhou Guan Yu in the future. Haas, another disappointment for me. I'm going to give them a 3. I'm going to give them a 3 because they were able to put Hülkenberg in top 10. But the car is not fast anymore. Like we saw Magnussen last year, he was P5. But you saw Magnussen out in Q1. I said Q3 many times today, but anyway, I meant Q1. And Hülkenberg started in top 10, and then at the end they were almost last. They don't have race pace. They don't have. Looks like the car is not as fast as it should be. I don't know if Ferrari is not supporting them anymore. I don't know what's happening. But for example, I compare the Haas with the Alfa Romeo, right? They are kind of similar, not big budget, supported by Ferrari. But you see that Alfa Romeo did some progress and Haas didn't. At least in this race, which is what I'm evaluating, of course. I'm going to give 5 Magnussen because he kind of got back from how he qualified. He was challenging closer to the points-ish. I think they were not even close to scoring points, but still, he was kind of there. And Nico Hülkenberg did exactly the opposite, as it happened, for example, in Alpine with Ocon and Gasly. Right? Nico Hülkenberg started in the top 10 and then went back. Perhaps being so many years out of F1 is paying the tribute or paying the toll. I don't know, but it's the first race. Let's see what happens with Hülkenberg. But for me, it was a very big disappointing race. I was expecting more from Hülkenberg. He should have been in front of Bottas, or at least challenging with Bottas, which is, for me, the rivalry of Haas should be with Alfa Romeo. But anyway, Alpha Tauri, I'm gonna give him a 5. Alpha Tauri is one of the worst cars in the field. I think they don't have the best pair of drivers. Tsunoda is very unstable. De Vries, let's see how it is. It's not the youngest and rookiest driver. Perhaps it will take some time to get used to the Alpha Tauri. There's not a lot of pre-season testing, getting to know the car and everything. But anyway, I'm gonna give them a 5 because they did a kind of a decent race. They were challenging teams that perhaps they shouldn't be challenging. But I am quite worried that usually Alpha Tauri is a team that starts kind of decent and then gets sort to the back. Now they are starting at the back. Let's see how they finish the season. Looks like Red Bull is not supporting them so much anymore. There are many rumors that say that the AlphaTauri is on sale. Perhaps Andretti is going to buy it. I don't know what's going to happen with this team. But anyway, Tsunoda, I'm going to give him a 7. Again, something like a Magnussen or a Gasly. He started at the back and he was able to go to the front. He beat Zhou Guanyu, he beat Nick de Vries, and he beat all the drivers that perhaps by the car he should not be beating. I think he did a solid race. He's supposed to be in charge of developing the team and everything. Let's see how the season develops for him. Nick de Vries, I'm gonna give him a 6, similar to Tsunoda. They went from less to more. Let's see what happens with Nick de Vries. I have. I'm not gonna say I have expectations for this driver. He's supposed to be really quick. Let's see what happens with him. There were rumors as well saying that if he has a decent season, perhaps Red Bull is gonna put him next to Max Verstappen in the main team. Let's see. Williams, for me, a very big surprise, a very good surprise. I'm gonna give them a 7. Seeing where they were, seeing where they are, Alexander Albon scoring points in race 1, Logan Sargent doing a solid race as well as a rookie. I think it's a very, very good surprise. I think it's very good news that Williams has been giving steps forward as they have. Right? They are not at the back of the grid anymore. They can challenge for Q2s, perhaps in some races, maybe Q3s. We don't know. Q3 now will have only 2 spots left because we have the big 4 and the rest. So let's see. I am very happy to see Williams there. Alexander Albon, very good race as per usual. I think it's another one of those ninja drivers, right? Silent, makes maybe a good start or whatever, and then it's about keeping people behind. Anyway, P10 scored 1 point. For Williams, this is a big thing, and I really hope this team can go forward little by little. And Logan Sargent, I'm going to give him a 7 as well, because being a rookie, the Williams is not the best car to drive, let's be honest. But he was there. He finished the race not so far away from Albon, and for a first race, I think it's a very good thing that he did. And now the stewards. I'm gonna give them a 7. Mainly there was not a lot of problems, I think, for the stewards. Not a complicated weekend. They had the issues with Ocon, and they didn't hesitate to give him as many penalties as was needed. I don't think, for example, the collision with Alonso and Sainz or any others were needed to be penalized. I think it was a decent race. So let's see if they can continue like this. I hope they can. Not many work. If they don't have work, means something is right. If they have work, let's see how they react in the future. So this is the evaluation that I did for the Bahrain Grand Prix. Let me know what you think. If you have any opinions or anything, let me know so we can discuss about this in the commentary box down below. And see you in other episodes of this new section I made.